Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse. And yeah, a bit of a slowdown, normal week. Shame it's not better. And this, it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. Alright, this week seals it. We're in the summer slowdown period, and not a moment too soon. Reasonable list of new arrivals as the remnants of album bombs rotate out, but just something close to normalcy is very welcome in my books amidst a very tumultuous year. I can't say it's all precisely good or gonna last, but hey, I guess that's the mixed blessing you get, especially given the release calendar does get a bit more cramped as we head deeper into August, and again, not always for the better. But before we get into all that, our top 10, where I guess I can't be surprised anymore that a bar song Tipsy by Shaboozey has held the number one. The sales are strong, it's dominant on streaming, and it took the top spot on the radio with momentum to spare. And considering I'm still not sick of a great song, I'm genuinely happy to see it doing so well, and I'm starting to get more annoyed that more Shaboozey songs aren't getting pushed. Come on, capitalize on your momentum. But I am content with it building a healthy margin against I Had Some Help by Post Malone and Morgan Wallen still at number 2. The radio is starting to ebb, and despite a good streaming week, the momentum seems to be about done. And that seems to also be the case for Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar holding at number 3. Despite strong YouTube, streaming is starting to slip, and whatever radio momentum it has, it's slowing down sharply. Then we got Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter actually pick up a spot to number 4, and this looks like it's a case on the margins. She still has radio traction even as the streaming is ebbing back, but that was enough to beat out Million Dollar Baby by Tommy Richmond at number 5, where it has that radio edge but saw some sharper losses on streaming and it just doesn't have the sales. Then we saw a spike for Lose Control by Teddy Swims up to number 6, although I think in this case it's more because of a bizarrely decent / stable radio week and more just inertia to hold up the streaming edge, whereas Too Sweet by Hozier slid down to number 7 as it saw radio losses and it does not have that streaming margin in its favor. But that opens up the door for Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan up to number 8. Yeah, the sales aren't quite there, but it's picking up fast on streaming and the radio. It could well take advantage of the weaknesses above it to actually make a proper run. Hell, it leapfrogged Please 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 by Sabrina Carpenter at number 9, which actually has better radio but got jumped on that streaming margin. Finally, re-entering the top 10, we got Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish at number 10, which has even better streaming, but you can tell the radio is just struggling to catch up with this one. I think it comfortably will, given how much Billie Eilish is loved on the radio, but it might take a few more weeks in the summer to fully get there, and that's to say nothing of that Billie Charlie XCX song, whether or not that would cannibalize some of it. We'll get to that probably next week. But it also naturally takes us to our losers and dropouts, where I'd say it was pretty quiet in the latter group, with the biggest song of note being Scared to Start by Michael Markagi, which is likely to miss the year-end list by a significant margin. I'm not really complaining. And the losers mostly make sense as well, so let's start off with the remnants of Eminem's album bomb, with Toby featuring Big Sean and Babytron falling to 84, and Somebody Save Me with Jelly Roll at 87. Now outside of those, The Boy Is Mine by Ariana Grande continues its wild trajectory up and down the charts at 65. Tough by Lana Del Rey and Quavo fell to 78, and I'm still kind of confused to whom that song was planned to work on. And off the returns from last week, Lithonia by Childish Gambino hit 90, and OK by JT hit 96. Now for our returns and gains, this is an interesting group. Well, alright, not exactly our returns, but La Petula by Peso Pluma and Nuttin Vega got back to 89, and Parking Lot by Mustard and Travis Scott got some residual album traction to rebound to 81. But the gains are interesting, especially starting off with the chart success of, what do you know, Charlie XCX, seeing 360 continue up to 44, and Apple off the debut rise to 66. And it's not just her. In terms of quality pop, Femininomenon by Chappell Roan jumped off the debut to 86, Wildflower by Billie Eilish spiked to 59, and The Door by Teddy Swims is up surprisingly big to 55. Took it long enough to get some proper traction, I can't complain. Hell, I'll even take Hang Tight Honey by Lainey Wilson up to 69. It's just enough for me to ignore Help Me by Real Boston Richie getting a boost off the debut to 74, even if I don't think it really has enough juice to make much of a run. Cross my fingers there. But that takes us to our healthy list of new arrivals. So, alright, let's start off with number 100, Wanna Be Loved by the Red Clay Strays.
Working hard enough. Oh, I just wanna be loved. I just wanna be loved.
I've talked before about being an indie country fan and watching the rise of acts that you generally like but don't really love, but the Red Clay Strays' brand of traditionalism and substantial rise has thrown me off a little bit, to the point where I'm legit shocked they're notching a second song on the Hot 100 with a Dave Cobb production credit to boot. And I actually think I like this one a decent bit more than Wondering Why. The lead squonk of the electric guitar feels a bit more modern against the clicking acoustics and the warmer bass line. Nice to see that from Dave Cobb, leaning into almost soulful textures with that organ, and while I don't quite think their frontman has the pipes to sell it completely, he's certainly trying to bring a little bit more of a Chris Stapleton-esque gravel to his voice, especially on the bridge and the final hook. And sure, the sentiment feels a bit broadly sketched. It's a tough world out there, unconvinced by many of the things that would bring pleasure and freedom to so many people. He just wants to be loved, but you know what? It's not badly executed, and in this vein of throwback country soul, I think it works. So while I'm not, again, wowed by this, I get the appeal, and it's a good song. Give it a shot. Number 94, Linger by Royel Otis.
You know I'm such a fool for you. You got me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to? Do you have to let it linger?
Okay, time for context with this one. Royel Otis is an Australian duo that makes indie pop rock. They put out their debut album earlier this year. Apparently the reviews are decent. I wasn't really about to check it out. I got no requests for it. Now apparently this cover is of a song by the Cranberries that went viral off their Sirius XM performance. I mean, at least it's not Zombie. The Cranberries did have other songs, and Linger actually predates Zombie. It's from their debut album. Now, I'll freely admit it's also one of those 90s alt-rock classic songs that I appreciate in the micro, but less in the macro. I've heard it covered and parodied and sung at karaoke more than I would prefer, where it tends to be vocally oversold to match the gorgeous strings and the warbling guitars, and alright, here, look, I can appreciate a bit more smoky snarl in the arrangement, but in stripping away the strings and the more intricate melodic accompaniment, it's got the feel of those covers that don't grasp the subtler beauty of this song. And you know what, some of this is just not fair to Royal Medell, who just isn't as striking a performer as the late Dolores O'Riordan, but it also feels a bit like a fluke, a nostalgia pop that should have everyone seeking out the original, not much more. Number 91, Nell by Fuerza Regida.
Pero Nell, otra noche, otro hotel. Pa' los van más de tres. La loca ni sé quién es. La enamoro mi Cartier. Si bien rica, pero Nell. Coloncita, pero Nell.
You know, we don't have to keep Fuerza Regida around. There are better regional Mexican acts that show flavor and promise and not their level of obnoxiousness. That being said, the approach the group takes to this felt a bit different. It was soaked in reverb and sticking to a very spare drum machine and a faded melodic touch to open up the song. I was curious what sort of switch up this was, and it is a switch up to a stock blocky reggaeton groove that sounded dated as hell even before we get the bed squeaks that are fused into the beat. It doesn't even sound like the same group. What the hell happened to the guitars and the accordion and the farting horns? It seems like all the personality is just gone. Then there's the content. It's a horny hookup jam where the girl was apparently most attracted by his watch, insert my doubt there, and he's most attracted to how she shakes her ass. I mean, that's at least consistent with Fuerza Regida, but it's also insanely generic and it feels dated to boot. I might not have liked how many of these songs sounded exactly the same, and this does sound different, and then it sounds like a throwaway from any other reggaeton act. Mediocre as hell, skip it. Number 88, Lucky by Halsey.
I'm a star, but I cry in my lonely heart, thinking if there's nothing missing in my life, then why do these tears come at night?
It's been a while since I've really thought about Halsey. It's not like I'd have reason to seek them out, but there was at least some potential in the experimentation of that 2021 album that I didn't really care for and didn't really seem to go anywhere, although I do mostly blame Capitol for that. Now, since then, they've been raising their child, knowing how difficult it was for them to have one. That makes all the sense in the world. But now we got a new single for that upcoming album, interpolating Lucky by Britney Spears. Okay, here's the thing. Putting aside any mining of that pop era's nostalgia, Lucky is in my top 5 favorite Britney Spears songs. On most given days, it's my number 1. It's a pop classic that's only picked up more weight with time and context, especially if you know more about what Britney went through in that meteoric rise to stardom. And while I get Halsey's attraction to the song and their desire to recontextualize it, fit it into their story, I'm sorry, it necessarily cannot have that same weight. The original Lucky was written at that dizzyingly tragic peak, not years later having never gotten close to that height. It won't have that immediate gut punch. And you can tell just how hard this song is trying to incorporate the hook amidst all the clunkier acoustics from the samples and the messier vocal punch-ins and the blockier percussion that necessarily has to thin out and get a shade bit quicker to match up with the original hook. I normally like Michael Ozawaru's production, and honestly, if the song was going for the more ramshackle confessional, I'd probably like it more because it doesn't cleanly connect to that more polished hook and the juxtaposition of the mood. The verses of the original Lucky were glossy and only implied angst, letting it gradually spill out throughout the course of the song. Whereas here, the misery is more in detail than highlighting Halsey's insecurities and struggles to keep it all together, but there's no real gradual tonal shift. So look, I was never going to be in a place where I loved this. The original was way too formative for me as a pop music fan early on. This does not hold a candle to it. But I also think it's evidence of an experiment that just doesn't quite work. I don't think it's bad, I'm just not going back to it. Number 68, Hate Me by Lil Yachty and Ian.
It's a Friday. Either way, I'ma die with my pride. Fell in love with the color and parked out front. Bitch, wait till you see the garage. I done made me a promise, I'll fight back once. This time I'm gonna leave it to God.
I think the part of me that wanted to like Lil Yachty after Let's Start Here officially died earlier this year, and it wasn't just the bad performance of those songs at Osheaga in 2023, or how for some stupid reason he's still ride or die for Drake. No. It came in all those statements being so frustrated with the current state of modern rap. It's why he went psychedelic rock in the first place. So naturally the next step is teaming up with Ian, the most flagrantly phony and formless slice of the rap industry to date. This is who you're giving a cosign, Yachty? Fucking really? And there's no hook here, and the chalky groove feels like it's trying to fuse trap and drill progressions together with that oily warble behind it, and Ian seems to be rapping on an entirely different beat with a vocal timbre that's close enough to Yachty and has me wondering why Yachty just didn't do the song himself. Actually, let's not mince words. Ian sounds like shit on this. He can't find a coherent pocket on the groove, his delivery has no power, his rhyming is forced, and the flexing is utterly generic. At least Yachty can find something of a pocket, albeit abortive, and have some somewhat off-kilter word choice in his I'm richer than your favorite rapper flexing. But that's the thing. This is the feel of Yachty getting a check to put Ian on after that valedictorian project got roundly savaged. And if sunlight is a disinfectant, it should really work here. Ian sucks, this sucks, let's move on. Number 57, Big Dawgs by Hanumankind and Kalmi.
Get up out the way. What you think this is? We ain't worried about it, ho. Watch your skirt the way they ask me how you get like this. How you live like this? Why you worried about it, ho? Get up on my dick.
You know, when it comes to out of nowhere virality, at least the story here is a bit more interesting. Hanumankind is an Indian rapper. He did spend some time in Texas growing up before seeing a lot of success in Southeast Asia, off a run of EPs going back to the late 2010s, in particular working with the producer Kalmi. And this is one of those cases where I'm fairly certain he is way bigger in parts of the world than I can credibly acknowledge. Even if this is his first crossover to the US in the Global Hot 100, he is signed to Def Jam India. He appears to have some backing, and I kinda get why this might work. I actually really like that grinding, gassy gurgle of synth behind the trap groove that has some splashy edges, even before we get a proper chopped and screwed outro. And while I don't love Hanumankind's voice in this weird nasal intersection between Vince Staples and Big Sean, he does have more personality and swagger to back up the braggadocious flair. although I can't say many of his bars are that interesting or creative. Honestly, if he had 2 or 3 great punchlines here, I might be fully ready to endorse it, but as it is, okay, not bad, I just want to see more. Number 33, Lonely Road by Machine Gun Kelly and Jelly Roll.
That we went wrong, where'd you go now? It's then a ghost town, and I'm still here, all alone.
At some point, there needs to be a proper career retrospective done on Machine Gun Kelly and the label Bad Boy, and how much his career has been categorically mismanaged. I've been saying that for years. I'm gonna blame Diddy for it for now because, well, it's easy, and he would be the kind of person to squander a promising idea given his history. But given how much I really love Tickets to My Downfall, to see MGK here in such a transparent grab for relevance is infuriating. Because if you can't get traction for any of your rap material, and your pop punk pivot died prematurely because your label boss has no interest in promoting you properly when he can be partying and assaulting women, why not call in a favor with Jelly Roll, who will apparently work with anyone to try some country instead? And why not interpolate Take Me Home Country Roads by John Denver? If you're going full hack, why the hell not? And the choices on this song honestly are kind of fucking mystifying. Of course, there's only a cheap snap behind the acoustics and lead and bass to support MGK's crashing out swagger. But why then put a trap skitter behind Jelly Roll as if to remind us of the era when he used to rap about the last thing anyone wants to be reminded of? And what makes it worse is that if you dig into the liner notes about the backing vocals, especially on the hook, those are the Costellos, a country trio of sisters that actually have some neo-traditional buzz, and for some agonizing reason are stuck backing up MGK's flagrantly phony stab at Nashville. Whoever is at Warner Nashville needs to be thrown in the Tennessee River for that sort of mismanagement of their talent. Yes, Travis Barker and Charlie Handsome make the best out of this mix. It doesn't sound offensively bad. It's competent. The performances are fine, I guess. But when MGK says this took 2 years and multiple studios in order to get it right, I don't buy that for a second. 2 years ago was Mainstream Sellout. I tried to give you grace then. How the fuck do you wind up here? Because this is really bad. And you want to know why I can draw any contrast so easily? Well, finally, number 17, Guy for That by Post Malone featuring Luke Combs.
She's searching for someone who's gonna build it back, but I ain't got a guy for that.
Okay, look, there's a lot about Post Malone's Nashville pivot that's felt a bit iffy to me. It feels genuine coming out of him. He's always wanted to make a country project coming out of Texas. But of all the influences he cites, the fact that so many of these songs feel like a Music Row project tell me that when he likely re-upped his deal with UMG, he was told to work with people that would move the units. And that means playing to the formula when Austin underperformed last year, where I wouldn't call it bad so much as profoundly safe. But Luke Combs did put out an excellent neo-traditional project earlier this year that really deserved to do better. And against all odds, I had some hope for this, even as the buzz was suggesting that this was the weakest single so far. And honestly, while I wouldn't say it's great, I think it works. Maybe it's the touches of fiddle blending alongside the louder electric guitar welling around the reverb and the blockier percussion. Maybe it's how much Luke Combs commits to the track, where quite frankly, I think he kind of runs away with it compared to Post Malone's yodeling. Or maybe it's because the underlying lyrical sentiment, it's fine. They got guys for everything, and it's kind of cute how they flip their cultural signifiers that are inverted, except for trying to repair this girl's broken heart, especially as they themselves can't be trusted to do it well. But I can also tell when something is missing in the follow-through. The lack of bridge here really hurts the song. It feels kind of abortive, and like I Had Some Help, it feels like a song that's talking past the women in these songs without featuring them that well, and at least to this odd, hollow feeling, like something's missing. Now again, it's fine, it's otherwise listenable, but as someone who really did like Austin, to see Post Malone coasting with songs that could have gone to any other Music Row act, it does not give me that high hopes for F1 Trillion. That's all I'm saying, but that's our week. And it's a pretty rough one, let's be honest. Worse is Going to Hate Me by Lil Yachty and Ian, with dishonorable mention to Lonely Road by MGK and Jelly Roll. I mean, both cuts are offensively bad. The latter one is just somewhat competent on fundamentals and production. I can recognize that. Best of the week, I guess Wanna Be Loved by the Red Clay Strays kind of has it by default, and I guess Linger, that cover by Royel Otis, is getting the honorable mention. It's nowhere near as good as the original, but good enough, I guess? But hey, I'll take that over a possible round 2 with Kanye West and the possible Vultures 2. God, I hope I'm wrong with that prediction, and it doesn't chart that much, but stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.